family. Welcome to another episode of Recovering
Loud
with Eric and Al. My name's Eric. I'm somebody in long-term recovery.
And I'm Al. I'm a grateful recovering alcoholic here in the studio.
The studio.
We have our guest, and we are redoing the Tom Overett interview, the other recovery coach. So we're really excited to have you, Tom, coming from the back seat. We found out that we have the best sound off of a microphone on a phone.
It is crazy.
In the car while we're driving around, just goofing around being guys.
I'm going to be honest. It was tough not releasing that last video that we had Tom on because it was so powerful. The echo kind of overtook it, which would have taken away from the message. But I was on the fence about it at first, but I didn't want the intro of Tom to be remembered as the echo.
Right, and we did post it initially.
We did. It was up there for 3 seconds.
Anyhow, Tom, the reason we're having you is because we wanted to hear your story. So introduce yourself however you'd like, and just, talk into the phone.
Okay. Well, thanks, guys. My name's Tom Overett. I am a recovery coach. And, general observation, I just want to point out, guys, the first time that we did this, we were in a room at the library that quite resembled an interrogation room. It looked like a jail cell or interrogation. And now I'm sitting in the back seat of the car, which feels an awful lot like a ride in the back of a police car. So I'm curious what's next. But, so it's great to regroup with you guys. I love what you're doing, and I'm excited to be a part of it today. And I'd love to share my story. And, we could jump in anywhere on that. Is there any particular timeline you want to jump in?
So I know that the last time we had you on, you had said that you wanted to talk more about your coming up in recovery. Right, and whatever that looked like for you. I don't think I've ever heard your story as far as where it started compared to where you're at right now. So,
right.
Well, why not start anywhere you feel comfortable and then progress from there?
Yeah,
sure.
Give us your experience, strength, and hope, brother.
Sure.
Okay. Well, it's a long story, so I'll just kind of jump around a little bit, but I want to go back probably about 14 years when I was introduced to treatment. And when I went into treatment, I had not been to any support group meetings or anything like that. I just went straight into treatment, and I had an issue at the time with cocaine and alcohol. And my belief was at the time that I needed to get what I was using under control so that I could fix all the problems that were developing in my life. I didn't even recognize the degree of problem that I had. It was more like I need a break from it, I need to reset and start over. And I actually got a lot out of the treatment. It was in a hospital in Newport Beach, California, and it was a medical approach, not from a standpoint of medication, but we were taught about parts of the brain and how chemicals and alcohol affect us and so forth, and did get introduced to the 12 steps, and I started that afterward, but I still would not identify as an alcoholic. Sure. I just didn't identify yet. And but moving along, I got engaged, got a sponsor, did starting identifying as an alcoholic, maintained sobriety, was introduced to recovery, but I still didn't have an idea of what recovery looked like, and I didn't understand what it meant either. I just knew that I was sober now, and I was putting my life back together, and that's all I needed to be then.
Right.
Learn how to walk and talk kind of thing.
Yeah. Especially that first year in recovery, we're just learning how to stand, on our own for that matter. It's really, the work really comes into that second year where you're now realizing, okay, this is how I'm standing now, it's time to walk.
Absolutely. And gosh, I think I've had a couple paradigm shifts in my recovery. A few. And one, of course, is just removing the substance use disorder at the beginning. And then I had setbacks along the way, first of all, I did get involved with treatment. I had been working in corporate America, selling high-end telecommunication solutions, and life was pretty good.
Money.
Yeah, it was,
Cha-ching.
I remember I had a therapist, and she'd asked how I was doing, and I was not doing the greatest because I was going through a divorce. She asked what my day looked like. I said, well, I'm living on my boat right now, and So I wake up in the morning, I dial into work, then I dive off the front of the boat, swim across the bay over to the beach. I go for a run, then I come back, shower off, get back on the computer. And she interrupted me and told me that a lot of people would be envious of that lifestyle. While I was very embarrassed that I was going through a divorce and living on my boat. You know what I mean? There was
that
this...
ego and pride are kind of bruised at that point.
Yeah, big time.
I can see how some people would be appealed to that, though. You know, that loner living
that
on a
freedom
boat.
Kind of,
like, oh, you can just go where you want and do what you want. But
yeah.
That has to be
part of
lonely.
going through the divorce, though, you know, people don't really put a whole lot of weight on that. You actually recover from that. There's a recovery process to I'm getting a divorce.
Right.
It's a grieving process.
Absolutely.
Like, it feels like a withdrawal, too. When that person is no longer there, you can no longer talk to them. It almost feels like a withdrawal or a death. Like, you just that part of you is just done.
Yeah, in selfishly and personally, there's that aspect of our visions that we have of what we want to have in our lives, and we do look forward in our lives as to what that looks like, and then it gets pulled out from underneath you, and that vision is gone.
Right.
And so, a part of you is too. So, you know, so I did a lot of soul searching, and I kept key components to my life in place, fully engaged with my kids and work and surfing and all the stuff that I like to do. But I was not happy at work, and I started pursuing work in the recovery world. Got engaged with that out west. Worked at a treatment center, wore a few hats there, and liked it quite a bit. When I moved back to Michigan, which would have been 9 years ago, and that was because of some illnesses my mother was going through. And that's how I got tied in. I went to a local treatment center, and I wanted to volunteer because I didn't think I was going to be here for a long period of time. And they offered me a job and got me dialed in with NEMSAS for volunteering. And that's how I became a recovery coach. So, anyway.
You're one of the OGs.
OGs.
Yeah,
the OCs, the original coaches.
It was, and this is where my paradigm shift again began, and I think a true understanding of what recovery looked like. You know, I'd worked the 12 steps a couple times, and I did the back to basics with Wally P. I actually got to meet Wally P. You know, I was into it, but my understanding of recovery really came from my one experience in a treatment center and working the 12 steps, and that's the foundation of what my recovery was. And
so let me ask you a quick question.
Yes.
What was the differences you found between recovery in California and recovery in Michigan? Because when I think of what you just said, it seems like parts of California were light years ahead of us. Because, like, I know in 2017 when I moved to Arizona and I came back 2 years later, like, it was a night and day difference. There was recovery capital everywhere, you know? But it sounds like California already had that.
Yeah, I think from the perspective of what was being offered in treatment, they were way ahead. And that the pathway that you're going to choose, and the pathways weren't introduced in 12-step format, right? Like we have Wellbriety, Celebrate Recovery, Life Frame, Smart, you know, AA, NA. Recovery Dharma, thank you. All of these things I didn't know anything about except for AA and NA. And but from a standpoint of looking at things scientifically, medically assisted treatment, and you're designing what it's going to look like when you leave, left in the hands of the person going through the treatment. And, you know, and a lot of the treatment centers introduce that, you know, with yoga and meditation and different things, which is a pathway to recovery, right?
Absolutely.
Some fun differences would be the fact that, you know, you go to an AA meeting in California, and after every person shares, everyone in the room claps. I don't know if you knew that. And funny to me, because when I came to Michigan and went to my first AA meeting, after the first person shared, I was the only one in the room clapping. And it was pretty embarrassing. And then after I shared, they all clapped. So it was cool. I felt embraced. But, you know, aside from that, there's not much different. And that's what's neat about AA as a foundation to a person's recovery, or NA, 12-step program. Because regardless of where you go to treatment, and regardless of where you end up settling down with your life, you'll always be able to find people in recovery that have followed that path. There's always a meeting available, in a close proximity. So that's healthy. That's great.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But given the opportunity to go through the recovery coach training, had taken my recovery, which, well, it wasn't very broad. It was very focused on what I had. And
like tunnel vision almost.
Tunnel vision is a really good analogy to it. And that's what it was. It reinvigorated me. I got excited about recovery, and I kind of had a pretty good idea what recovery looked like now. Before, it was just get sober and allow things to come back into play. And,
right.
It was nothing like what I was able to see after going through that experience. And
so I actually got to go through it twice because I had my training, and then I got to watch Al go through it, and his metamorphosis happens right before our eyes. And it's like, I remember when I first asked you about it, you're like, I don't want to be a coach. What am I going to do with that? I'm going to stick gum on the frame and all this other stuff, right? And the first day, I was laughing. He left that first day pissed. He goes, I just can't even talk about it. I'm just going to go for a walk.
Well, it was how close-minded people were. It's like when I went into this, I'm like, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it with an open mind.
Right.
And just people were so close. There's other ways outside of AA, and I was like, I was pretty young in my recovery, and I was like, well, yeah. Haven't you heard of medically assisted treatment or thought about any other form than AA or? They were just, I don't know, it just irritated me how close, and I was like, these are the people that they're allowing to be recovery
That's
coaches.
That's what he said, too.
That's exactly these people do not need to be recovery coaches. They need to take a lesson in understanding tolerance and patience before they try to coach somebody in living. And I think
acceptance.
It's because I wasn't accepting where they were. It was my problem.
That tunnel vision.
Yeah. So it's interesting, especially finding what I like in recovery, which is the advocating. I just think that's the most fun part. Working in the trenches like what you guys do. Oh my God! In the front lines when people are coming right out of recovery. I mean, I'm one like you. I have an AA foundation and I love it. Even today, the morning meeting, somebody came in as their first meeting ever. So of course we had a first step meeting, and I'll tell you that guy was freaked out.
Yeah.
And we didn't mean to. We tried to shower him with love and compassion, and it really is. It's a lot to take in.
It is.
And the guy was like trying not to cry, and it's like, please let it out, please,
right.
Please, because new people in recovery really bring it to the forefront of our face. Like that is the absolute worst of our disease, right there.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what I really appreciate about getting in front of, like you were saying, get with your tribe, get with your people,
right.
And you will always be able to find some strength, some hope, something to hold on to keep you from using.
Yeah, and that's what happened to me was the introduction to the tribe, because now here I was, a person of AA, supported with people in AA, working in treatment and coaching, and getting through the 12 steps for me was kind of like climbing a mountain, getting to the top, climbing Mount Everest, right? Mm-hmm. And when you get to the top, that's quite a feat, quite an accomplishment. And then you look back down, right, with those 12 steps completed, and now you're like, all right, follow me,
Right.
Take my path. There's 12 steps. Don't skip any,
right.
All that. And that's what we know, and that's what we learn. But, now that we're at the top of the mountain, which is not a pinnacle point, right, it's just we've gotten to a resting place. And imagine yourself being at the top of this accomplishment, and then a helicopter flies by, and it's an organization like NEMSAS.
Right.
And in the helicopter, they're like, hey, we've been flying around the area, and it turns out there's a lot of ways to get up here where we can all congregate.
Right.
Just want to let you know there's a lot more.
Yep.
And
hop on, I'll show you. Right?
Yeah, hop on. Like we got a couple people in here that are ready to jump out, parachute down, and save some people. So, that whole, for me, getting to the top is really just the beginning of, for me, it was the beginning of then reaching a top with other people that have climbed the mountain, taken a different path, sharing our experiences, and then I climbed the mountain again,
right,
taking someone else's route and path. And so I've been through Wellbriety from cover to cover, and smart. And
it is interesting how many different ways there are now to become clean and sober and maintain that healthy life.